How dare you show your face here? I spat, slamming the door shut behind me. My heart pounded as I faced Sophie, my twin sister, standing on my porch with that same smug look she wore 13 years ago. The one that said she always got what she wanted, especially when it was mine. "Emma, please, just hear me out," Sophie pleaded, her voice a mix of desperation and defiance. "It's been years. Can't we talk?" I crossed my arms, my eyes narrowing. "Talk? You want to talk now? After you stole my husband and ruined my life?" Sophie flinched, but she didn't back down. "James and we need your help." "Help?" I laughed bitterly. "You must be out of your mind." As if on cue, James appeared from behind Sophie, his once confident demeanor now shadowed by regret. "Emma, we wouldn't be here if we weren't desperate." I felt a surge of anger. The audacity of them standing there, asking for help after everything they'd done. Desperate? You think I care about your desperation? "Emma, please." James began, but I cut him off. "Don't you, Emma, please me, James. You made your bed. Now lie in it." Suddenly, the door behind me opened, and Sam stepped out, his presence a calming force. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, his hand gently resting on my shoulder. "Everything's fine," I said through gritted teeth. "Just a couple of ghosts from the past." Sam looked at Sophie and James, his expression unreadable. "Maybe we should take this inside," he suggested. I wanted to protest, but the look in Sam's eyes told me he thought it was the best course of action. Reluctantly, I stepped aside, allowing Sophie and James into our home. As they entered, I couldn't help but notice how out of place they looked. Our cozy suburban townhouse in Springfield was a stark contrast to the chaos they brought with them. "Nice place," Sophie remarked, her eyes scanning the living room. "Cut to the chase, Sophie," I snapped. "What do you want?" Sophie took a deep breath. "We need money. We're in a bad spot, and we have nowhere else to turn." I felt a bitter satisfaction at their predicament. "And you think I should help you because we're family," James said quietly. "Family?" I echoed, incredulous. "You stopped being family the moment you betrayed me." "Emma," Sam interjected, his voice calm but firm. "Let's hear them out." I shot him a look but nodded. "Fine. Talk." Sophie glanced at James before speaking. "We're broke. James lost his job, and we've been struggling to make ends meet. We're about to lose our house. And you think I should care because?" I repeated, my patience wearing thin. "Because I'm pregnant," Sophie blurted out. A stunned silence filled the room. I looked at her, searching for any sign of deceit. "Pregnant? Are you serious?" "Yes," she said, her eyes pleading. "We need your help, Emma. Please." I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion. But above all, I felt the weight of the decision before me. Could I really turn my back on them, even after everything? Before I could respond, Ben came running into the room, his 8-year-old energy filling the space. "Mom, Dad, what's going on?" "Nothing, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "Just some old friends visiting." Ben looked at Sophie and James curiously. "Who are they?" "They're family," I said reluctantly. "Family?" Ben repeated, looking confused. "Yes, family," Sam said, his hand still on my shoulder. "And sometimes family needs help." I looked at Sam, feeling a mix of gratitude and frustration. He was right, of course. But that didn't make it any easier. "All right," I said finally, turning to Sophie and James. "We'll talk. But don't think for a second that I've forgotten what you did." Sophie nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Emma. You won't regret this." I wasn't so sure. But for now, I had no choice but to let them in and see what the future held. I stood in the kitchen, the aroma of fresh coffee filling the air, trying to wrap my head around the events of the previous evening. Sophie and James back in my life asking for help. It was like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. "Mom, can I have pancakes?" Ben's cheerful voice broke through my thoughts. "Sure, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile. "Why don't you go set the table?" As Ben ran off, Sam walked in, his brow furrowed. "You okay?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me. I leaned into his embrace. I don't know. I just can't believe they're here, asking for help. Maybe it's a chance to finally get some closure, Sam suggested gently. Or it's a chance for them to mess up my life again, I countered. Before Sam could respond, the doorbell rang. I tensed, fearing it was Sophie and James again. But when I opened the door, it was my mother, Patricia. "Morning, Emma," she greeted, her warm smile a welcome sight. "I thought I'd drop by and see how you're doing." "Come in, Mom," I said, stepping aside. "You won't believe who's back in town." Patricia's eyes widened as she took a seat at the kitchen table. "Don't tell me. Sophie and James." "Yes," I confirmed, pouring her a cup of coffee. "They showed up last night asking for help." Patricia sighed, shaking her head. "That girl, always causing trouble." "I don't know what to do, Mom," I admitted, sitting across from her. "Part of me wants to help, but another part of me wants nothing to do with them." "You're a good person, Emma," Patricia said, reaching out to hold my hand. "But don't let them take advantage of you again." "I won't," I promised, though I wasn't entirely sure how I'd manage that. Just then, Ben came running back into the kitchen. "Grandma, are you staying for breakfast?" "Of course, darling," Patricia replied, ruffling his hair. "I wouldn't miss it." As we ate breakfast, the tension from the night before began to fade, replaced by the comforting routine of family life. But it wasn't long before the peace was shattered. "Emma, we need to talk," Sophie said, appearing in the doorway with James by her side. I stood up, my jaw clenched. "What now?" "We need to explain," James began, but Sophie cut him off. "James, let me handle this," she said, turning to me. "Emma, I know you don't trust us, but we really are in a bad spot." "And whose fault is that?" I snapped. "You made your choices, Sophie. Now you have to live with them." "Please, Emma," Sophie pleaded, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm pregnant. We have nowhere else to go." I looked at her, trying to see past the lies and manipulation. Was she telling the truth this time? "Emma," Patricia said softly, placing a hand on my arm, "maybe you should hear them out." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "Fine, but this better be good." Sophie and James exchanged a glance before Sophie spoke. "We lost everything, Emma. The house, the car, everything. James lost his job, and we couldn't keep up with the bills. And now you're pregnant," I said, my voice cold. "Convenient timing." "It's the truth," James insisted. "We wouldn't be here if we had any other option." I looked at Sam, who nodded slightly, his eyes encouraging me to give them a chance. "All right," I said finally. "We'll help you. But there are going to be conditions." "Anything," Sophie said quickly. "We'll do whatever it takes. First, you need to find a job, both of you," I said firmly. "And you can't stay here. We'll help you find a place. But you need to start taking responsibility for your lives." "Thank you, Emma," James said, his relief palpable. "Don't thank me yet," I warned. "This is your last chance. Don't blow it." As Sophie and James left, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, frustration, and a glimmer of hope. Maybe this time things would be different. But I wasn't holding my breath. The following morning, I was still trying to process everything when Sam and I sat down to discuss the next steps. We needed to find a place for Sophie and James, and fast. "There's a rental down the street that's been vacant for a while," Sam suggested, sipping his coffee. "I could call the landlord and see if it's available." "That sounds like a good idea," I replied, feeling a bit more hopeful. "But they need jobs too. We can't support them indefinitely." "I'll talk to a few people at work," Sam offered. "Maybe someone has some leads." "Thanks, Sam," I said, grateful for his support. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "We're a team," he reminded me, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. Just as we were finishing breakfast, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Sophie standing there, looking more disheveled than ever. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sure," I said, stepping aside. "What's going on?" "I don't know how to say this," Sophie began, her eyes darting around nervously. But I think I'm being followed. Followed? I echoed, my heart sinking. By who? I don't know, she admitted, wringing her hands. But I keep seeing the same car everywhere I go. It's like they're watching me. Why would anyone be following you? Sam asked, his brow furrowed. I don't know, Sophie repeated, tears welling up in her eyes. But I'm scared, Emma. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. All right, let's think this through. Have you noticed anything else unusual? No, just the car, Sophie replied, her voice trembling. James doesn't believe me, but I know what I saw. We'll figure this out. I promised, though I had no idea how. As Sophie sat down at the kitchen table, I glanced at Sam, who nodded. I'll call the police and see if they can send someone to check it out, he said, heading for the phone. Thank you, Sophie whispered, her shoulders slumping in relief. While Sam made the call, I sat down next to Sophie. Is there anything else you haven't told me? I asked gently. Sophie hesitated, then shook her head. No, that's it. All right, I said, though I wasn't entirely convinced. We'll get through this. A few minutes later, Sam returned. The police are sending someone over to take a statement, he said. In the meantime, we'll keep an eye out and make sure you're safe. Thank you, Sophie said again, her voice barely audible. As we waited for the police to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. Sophie had always been reckless, but this seemed different. More dangerous. When the police arrived, Sophie gave her statement, describing the car and the times she'd seen it. The officer took notes, promising to keep an eye out and follow up if they found anything. After they left, I turned to Sophie. You can stay here for now, I said, though the words felt heavy in my mouth. But we need to find you a place soon. I understand, Sophie replied, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Emma. As the day wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Something about Sophie's story didn't add up, and I couldn't help but wonder what she was hiding. That evening, as I was tucking Ben into bed, he looked up at me with wide eyes. Mom, is Aunt Sophie going to be okay? I hope so, sweetheart, I said, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. We're doing everything we can to help her. Okay, Ben said, snuggling into his blankets. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Ben, I replied, kissing his forehead. Good night. As I closed his door, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. The day had been long and filled with more questions than answers. I headed downstairs, finding Sam waiting for me in the living room. How's Ben? He asked, pulling me into a comforting embrace. He's worried, I admitted, resting my head on his shoulder. I am too. We'll get through this, Sam said, his voice steady and reassuring. Together. I nodded, though the knot in my stomach remained. As we sat together, the weight of the situation pressing down on us, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. And whatever was coming next, we would have to face it head-on. The next day, I woke up with a sense of foreboding. Something felt off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the situation with Sophie and James was about to get worse. I decided to confront them directly and get to the bottom of things. Sophie, we need to talk, I said, finding her in the kitchen, nursing a cup of tea. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed. What is it? Are you really pregnant? I asked bluntly, cutting to the chase. Sophie hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I am. Can you prove it? I pressed. A doctor's note, an ultrasound, anything? Her face crumpled and she looked away. I don't have anything like that yet. But I swear, Emma, I'm telling the truth. I sighed, frustration bubbling up inside me. You have to understand why it's hard for me to believe you, given our history. I know, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I'm not lying this time. Before I could respond, James walked in, tension radiating from him. What's going on? I was just asking Sophie about her pregnancy, I said, my eyes never leaving his face. I want proof. James sighed, running a hand through his hair. Emma, I know we haven't given you any reason to trust us, but this is real. We're in trouble, and we need your help. Then help me help you, I said, my voice firm. Be honest with me. James looked at Sophie, then back at me. All right, there's something else you should know. I crossed my arms, waiting. Go on. The reason we lost everything, it wasn't just because I lost my job, James admitted, his voice low. We got involved with some people. Bad people. And now they're after us. My heart sank. What kind of people? Loan sharks, Sophie said quietly. We borrowed money to keep up with the bills, but we couldn't pay it back. Now they're threatening us. Why didn't you tell me this before? I demanded, anger rising. You put us all in danger. We were scared, James said, his voice breaking. We didn't know what to do. I took a deep breath, trying to process this new information. All right, we'll figure this out. But you need to be honest with me from now on. No more secrets. We promise, Sophie said, her voice trembling. Just then Sam walked in, his face pale. Emma, we need to talk. Now. I followed him into the living room, my heart pounding. What is it? I just got a call from the police, Sam said, his voice tight. They found the car that's been following Sophie. It's registered to a known criminal. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means they're serious, Sam said grimly. We need to be careful. I felt a wave of fear wash over me. What are we going to do? We'll figure it out, Sam said, his voice steady. But we need to keep an eye on Sophie and James. We can't let them out of our sight. I nodded, my mind racing. All right. We'll do whatever it takes to keep everyone safe. As we rejoined Sophie and James in the kitchen, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get even more complicated. But I knew we had to face it head-on together. Listen, I said, addressing Sophie and James. The police found the car. It's bad news. We need to be extra careful. Sophie paled, her hand going to her stomach. What are we going to do? We'll figure it out, I said, echoing Sam's words. But you need to stay here, where we can keep an eye on you. Thank you, James said, his voice filled with relief. We won't let you down. You better not, I replied, my voice hard. Because if you do, there won't be a next time. As the day wore on, the tension in the house was palpable. We were all on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I couldn't help but wonder what else Sophie and James were hiding. That evening, as I was getting ready for bed, Sam pulled me into his arms. We'll get through this, he said softly. I know, I replied, though I wasn't entirely sure. But it's going to be a long road. We'll walk it together, Sam said, kissing my forehead. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. And whatever was coming next, we would have to face it head-on together. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of determination. We needed to get to the bottom of this mess, and that meant taking action. After breakfast, Sam and I sat down with Sophie and James to discuss our next steps. We need to figure out exactly who these people are and what they want, I said, looking directly at James. You said they were loan sharks. Do you know their names? James nodded, looking ashamed. Yeah, the main guy is called Tony Russo. He's bad news, Emma. Really bad news. How much do you owe him? Sam asked, his voice steady but serious. $20,000. James admitted, his eyes downcast. I felt a surge of anger. How could you let it get this bad? We didn't have a choice, Sophie said, her voice breaking. We were drowning in debt, and they offered us a way out. But now you're in even deeper. I pointed out, my frustration mounting. Emma, we need to find a way to pay them back, Sam said, his hand on my arm. But we also need to keep everyone safe. How are we supposed to come up with that kind of money? I asked, feeling overwhelmed. We'll figure it out, Sam said, his voice calm and reassuring. But first, we need to make sure Tony Russo and his men don't come near this house. Just then, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped a beat as I went to answer it. Standing on the porch was Patricia, her expression a mix of concern and determination. Mom, what are you doing here? I asked, stepping aside to let her in. I heard about Sophie and James, she said, her voice firm. I came to help. How did you find out? I asked, surprised. Word gets around, Patricia replied, her eyes narrowing. And I have my ways. Mom, this is serious, I said, leading her into the living room. They're in deep trouble with loan sharks. I know, Patricia said, her voice softening. And that's why I'm here. We need to come up with a plan. As we sat down to discuss our options, I felt a glimmer of hope. With Patricia's help, maybe we could find a way out of this mess. First, we need to contact the police and let them know about Tony Russo, Patricia said, her tone assertive. They might be able to provide some protection. We already spoke to the police, Sam said. But we didn't mention Tony Russo by name. Then we need to do that, Patricia insisted. And we need to find a way to pay off the debt. We don't have that kind of money, I said, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I might be able to help with that, Patricia said, her voice hesitant. I've been saving up for a rainy day, and this certainly qualifies. Mom, you can't, I protested. That's your money. And you're my family, Patricia said firmly. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at my mother, her determination unwavering. Thank you, Mom. We'll get through this, Patricia said, her voice filled with conviction. Together, as we continued to discuss our plan, I felt a sense of resolve building inside me. We would face this challenge head-on, and we would come out stronger on the other side. Later that evening, as I was putting Ben to bed, he looked up at me with wide eyes. Mom, are we going to be okay? Yes, sweetheart, I said, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. We're going to be just fine. Promise? Ben asked, his voice small. I promise, I said, kissing his forehead. Good night, Ben. Good night, Mom, he replied, snuggling into his blankets. As I closed his door, I felt a surge of determination. We would find a way to pay off the debt, and we would protect our family from Tony Russo and his men. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. That night, as I lay in bed next to Sam, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get even more complicated. But I also knew that we were stronger together, and we would face whatever came our way. We'll get through this, Sam said softly, his hand gently holding mine. I know, I replied, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. We'll figure it out. As I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. But no matter what happened, I knew we would face it together as a family. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Sam and I worked tirelessly to gather the money needed to pay off Tony Russo. Patricia, true to her word, contributed a significant amount from her savings, and Sam managed to secure a loan from his boss. It wasn't easy, but we were making progress. One evening, as we were finalizing the details, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Sophie standing there, looking more anxious than ever. Emma, we need to talk, she said, her voice trembling. What now? I asked, feeling a mix of frustration and concern. It's James, Sophie said, tears welling up in her eyes. He's gone. Gone? What do you mean? I demanded, my heart pounding. He went to meet Tony Russo, Sophie explained, her voice breaking. He thought he could negotiate with him, but he hasn't come back. I felt a surge of panic. Why didn't you stop him? I tried, Sophie sobbed, but he wouldn't listen. He said he needed to fix this. I turned to Sam, who was already grabbing his keys. We need to find him. Let's go, Sam said, his voice steady but urgent. We drove to the address Sophie had given us, a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place looked deserted, but I knew better than to trust appearances. Stay here, Sam instructed as we pulled up. I'll go inside. No way, I said, my voice firm. We're in this together. Sam hesitated, then nodded. All right, but stay close. We entered the warehouse, the dim lighting casting eerie shadows on the walls. My heart raced as we moved through the maze of corridors, searching for any sign of James. Suddenly, we heard voices coming from a room up ahead. We crept closer, and I could make out Tony Russo's menacing tone. You're making a big mistake, James, Tony said, his voice cold. You can't just walk away from this. I'm not walking away, James replied, his voice shaky but determined. I came to make a deal. And what makes you think I'm interested in a deal? Tony sneered. Because if you don't, the police will be all over this place, James said, trying to sound confident. I've already tipped them off. I held my breath, praying James knew what he was doing. You're bluffing, Tony said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Am I? James challenged. Do you really want to take that chance? There was a tense silence, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. All right, Tony said finally. I'll give you one last chance. But if you cross me again, there won't be a next time. Understood, James said, his relief palpable. As Tony's men escorted James out of the room, Sam and I stepped forward. James! I called, my voice echoing through the warehouse. James looked up, his eyes widening in surprise. Emma? Sam? What are you doing here? We came to find you, I said, rushing to his side. Are you okay? I'm fine, James said, though he looked shaken. Let's get out of here. We hurried back to the car, my heart still pounding from the tension. As we drove away, I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and anger. What were you thinking, James? I demanded, my voice trembling. You could have been killed. I had to do something, James said, his voice weary. I couldn't just sit back and let you all risk everything for my mistakes. We're a family, I said, my anger giving way to a surge of emotion. We face things together. James nodded, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, Emma. I really am. We'll talk about this later, Sam said, his voice calm but firm. Right now, we need to get home and figure out our next steps. As we pulled into the driveway, I felt a sense of exhaustion wash over me. But there was also a glimmer of hope. We had faced a major crisis and come out the other side, but I knew the hardest part was still ahead. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was hanging by a thread. We were so close to resolving this nightmare, but one wrong move could bring it all crashing down. We'll get through this, Sam said softly, his hand gently holding mine. I know, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. But it's not over yet. As I drifted off to sleep, I knew that the next few days would be crucial. We had to find a way to pay off Tony Russo and ensure our family's safety. It was a daunting task, but I was determined to see it through, no matter what it took. The tension in our home was palpable as we prepared to meet Tony Russo and settle the debt once and for all. The money was gathered, but the fear of what might happen next loomed over us like a dark cloud. I could barely focus, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. The night before the meeting, I found Sophie sitting alone in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. I sat down next to her, the weight of our shared history pressing down on us. Sophie, are you sure you're ready for this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. I have to be. This is our only chance to make things right. Just remember, I said, taking her hand. We're in this together. No more secrets. No more secrets, she echoed, squeezing my hand. The next morning, we gathered in the kitchen for a final rundown. Sam had contacted the police, ensuring they were aware of the meeting and would be nearby in case things went south. Patricia was staying with Ben, keeping him safe and away from the impending danger. All right, everyone knows the plan, Sam said, his voice steady. We go in, hand over the money, and get out. No unnecessary risks. James nodded, his face pale but resolute. Let's do this. We drove in silence to the agreed-upon location, an abandoned parking lot on the outskirts of town. As we pulled in, I spotted Tony Russo and his men waiting, their expressions cold and calculating. Stay close, Sam whispered as we stepped out of the car. Tony approached us, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. You got the money? We have it, I said, holding up the briefcase. But we need assurances that this ends here. Tony smirked, his gaze shifting to Sophie and James. You two have caused me a lot of trouble. But money talks. Hand it over. I took a deep breath, stepping forward and placing the briefcase in Tony's hands. "This is everything. Now leave us alone." Tony opened the briefcase, his eyes gleaming as he counted the money. "Looks like we're done here," he said, snapping it shut. "But remember, if you ever cross me again, there won't be a next time." "We understand," James said, his voice trembling. As Tony and his men turned to leave, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was over. We had done it. But just as I was about to breathe easy, one of Tony's men suddenly grabbed Sophie, pulling her close and holding a knife to her throat. "Not so fast," he snarled. "I think we deserve a little bonus for our trouble." Panic surged through me as I watched Sophie struggle, her eyes wide with terror. "Let her go," I shouted, my voice breaking. "Or what?" the man taunted, pressing the knife closer to Sophie's skin. Before I could react, Sam lunged forward, tackling the man to the ground. The knife clattered away, and Sophie stumbled back into my arms, sobbing. "Get out of here," Tony barked at his men, clearly shaken by the turn of events. "Now!" They scrambled to their feet, retreating to their cars and speeding away. As the dust settled, I turned to Sam, who was breathing heavily but otherwise unharmed. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I'm fine," he said, pulling me into a tight embrace. "It's over." I held on to him, my heart still racing. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. As we drove home, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. We had faced our greatest challenge yet and come out the other side. But the scars would take time to heal. Back at the house, Patricia and Ben were waiting anxiously. When we walked through the door, Ben ran to me, his eyes wide with worry. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked, clinging to me. "I'm okay, sweetheart," I said, hugging him tightly. "We're all okay." Patricia looked at us, her eyes filled with relief. "Thank God you're safe." "We did it, Mom," I said, my voice breaking. "It's over." As we sat down together, the weight of the past few weeks began to lift. We had faced our darkest hour and come out stronger on the other side. But I knew there was still one final step to take. "Sophie, James," I said, turning to them. "We need to talk." They looked at me, their expressions a mix of gratitude and apprehension. "We know," Sophie said quietly. "We owe you an explanation." "And more," I said, my voice firm. "From now on, things are going to be different." As we began to lay out the terms of our new understanding, I felt a sense of empowerment. We had faced our greatest challenge and come out stronger. Now it was time to rebuild together. The days following our confrontation with Tony Russo were a blur of tension and relief. We had narrowly escaped a dangerous situation, but the aftermath still loomed over us. Sophie and James were staying with us until we could figure out a more permanent solution, and the atmosphere in the house was thick with unspoken words and unresolved issues. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "Sophie, James," I began, looking them both in the eye, "we need to talk about what happens next." They exchanged a wary glance before nodding. "We know," Sophie said quietly. "We owe you so much, and we want to make things right." "That's a start," I said, my voice firm. "But it's not just about paying back the money. It's about rebuilding trust and taking responsibility for your actions." "We understand," James said, his voice filled with regret. "And we're willing to do whatever it takes." "Good," I replied, "because there are going to be some conditions." I laid out the terms. They would need to find jobs and start contributing to their own expenses. They would also need to attend counseling to address the issues that had led them down this path. Most importantly, they had to sign a pledge to never interfere in my life again. "This is non-negotiable," I said, sliding the pledge across the table. "If you break any of these conditions, you're on your own." Sophie and James looked at each other, then back at me. "We agree," Sophie said, her voice steady. "We'll sign." As they signed the pledge, I felt a sense of closure. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was a step in the right direction. The next few weeks were a period of adjustment. Sophie and James found temporary jobs, and we helped them look for a place of their own. Patricia was a constant source of support, her presence a calming influence in the midst of the chaos. One afternoon, as I was packing up some boxes in the living room, Sam walked in with a serious expression. "Emma, we need to talk," he said, sitting down next to me. "What is it?" I asked, my heart sinking. "I got a call from work," he said. "They want to transfer me to a new branch. It's a great opportunity, but it means we would have to move." I took a deep breath, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "Where would we go?" "Chicago," Sam replied. "It's a big change, but it could be a fresh start for all of us." I looked around our home, the place where we had built our life together. The thought of leaving was daunting, but the idea of a new beginning was also appealing. "Let's do it," I said finally, my voice filled with resolve. We could all use a fresh start. As we began to make plans for the move, I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. It was a chance to leave the past behind and build a new future together. The day of the move arrived quickly. As we loaded the last of the boxes into the truck, Sophie and James came to say goodbye. "Thank you for everything," Sophie said, hugging me tightly. "We wouldn't have made it without you." "Just remember the pledge," I said, my voice firm but kind. "And take care of each other." "We will," James said, shaking Sam's hand. "Good luck in Chicago." As we drove away, I looked back at the house one last time. It was the end of a chapter, but also the beginning of a new one. In Chicago, we settled into our new home, the city offering a sense of possibility and renewal. Ben adjusted quickly, making new friends and embracing the adventure. Sam's new job was challenging but rewarding, and our relationship grew even stronger as we navigated this new phase of our life together. One evening, as we sat on our balcony overlooking the city, I felt a sense of peace and contentment. We had faced incredible challenges and come out stronger on the other side. The past was behind us, and the future was filled with promise. "We did it," I said, leaning into Sam's embrace. "We made it through." "We did," Sam replied, his voice filled with pride. "And we'll keep moving forward together." As I looked out at the city lights, I knew that we had found our way back to each other, stronger and more resilient than ever. The journey had been difficult, but it had also brought us closer together. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together as a family.
What? A transfer gone wrong? $300 million. The business might fail as a result of that kind of loss. Didn't the details get checked more than once? This is what happens when you give important tasks to a mid-career hire. The entire organization was rocked by the astonishing news. The $300 million move appeared to have been the result of an unintentional error by a female employee who had joined in the middle of her career. She was surrounded like a suspect in the glass-walled meeting room, and the only sound coming from the room was Michael, the manager, speaking harshly. "If a mistake like this brings down the company, what are you planning to do to take responsibility?" Under his censure, she continued to say, in a thin, raspy voice, "I am so sorry." She appeared to be in complete despair, as seen by the tears in her eyes. I entered the meeting room on impulse, because I couldn't stand by and observe. Wait a moment. I pushed through the mob gently, supporting her shoulders, which seemed to be about to give out. "First, let's check the system to see if there really was a mistake in the transfer." She showed me the screen. The display was packed with rows of numbers and transfer records. There was a strange feeling. I typed on the keyboard and retrieved the other party's payment details, following my gut. "It's there. I have already retrieved it, yes." "What?" I got up discreetly as the meeting room exploded in turmoil. Her voice was shaking as she said, "Who are you?" At that moment, the door of the meeting room flew wide, and President Wilson hurried in, panting. "No way. Why have you come here?" There was obviously a tinge of surprise in the president's voice. "Because my true identity is, my name is John Taylor. I've been working from home lately. I work from home, which is ideal for me, so it's not that I'm unemployed. I wouldn't exchange the freedom to work at my own speed without outside influence for anything. I brew coffee in between jobs and enjoy the peaceful atmosphere while gazing out the window. It's soothing and freeing to be able to do anything without consulting anyone. My coworker David sent me a message one day. Hey, you should drop by the office sometime. Warm familiarity and mild annoyance were mixed together in his words. David frequently invites me to visit since he loves the business environment and spending time with his coworkers. However, I wasn't prepared to give up the convenience of working from home just yet. I couldn't just turn down his invitation, though. Guess I had no choice, I murmured, and grudgingly made my way to the office. I felt the mood was abnormally tight when I got there. I could hear the staff members whispering nervously to one another. Mia apparently transferred $3 billion in error. How did that even happen? What I heard were whispers like that. I saw David and went up to ask him what was happening. David, what's with the commotion? Oh, John, you finally showed up. So it looks like there was a mistaken transfer of $300 million. $300 million? That's pretty serious. Yeah. And Michael is trying to pin the blame on Mia. Who discovered the mistake? Mia. Right, you probably don't know her. She joined about 6 months ago as a mid-career hire. Following David's pointing finger, I saw a woman standing at the center of the meeting room. So that's Mia. She had sleek hair tied back and well-defined features, a beautiful woman. The scene visible through the glass-walled meeting room looked like a witch trial, led by the manager Michael. Several supervisors surrounded her. Outside of that circle was a ring of employees watching with curious eyes. She stood at the center of the room, almost like an exhibit on display. Did you really check it? Michael's voice echoed beyond the meeting room. His tone clearly carried hostility. Yes. Mia's response was faint and trembling. I noticed that her fingers, holding the documents, were shaking slightly. Her face was pale, with a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. I thought I checked it multiple times. At her words, Michael gave a mocking smirk. What do you mean thought? Did you check it properly or not? I'm... Her expression showed a painful effort to hold back tears. Her lowered eyelashes glistened slightly, hinting at the tears she was trying to suppress. Do you realize it? We're talking about $300 million. That's far more than the company's annual revenue. How will you take responsibility if this mistake ruins the company? Mia's shoulders shook violently at those words. She was desperately trying not to cry, but that very effort made her distress even more apparent. I am so sorry. A hoarse voice escaped from her lips. If it was going to come to this, we never should have hired you in the first place. Even your resume seems suspicious now. At that statement, Mia's eyes widened and tears filled over. No, I had reached my limit. Hold on a second. I pushed through the crowd and stepped forward. Standing next to Mia, I supported her trembling shoulders. Could you explain what exactly happened? She looked up at me, bewildered. Mia, it's okay. Tell them what happened. With David's encouragement, Mia started to explain the situation. I thought I checked it properly, but... Got it. Let me see the system logs. I opened my laptop on the spot and began checking the transaction history in the transfer system. As I stared at the strings of numbers displayed on the screen, my conviction grew stronger. This is not a mistaken transfer. The room stirred as I made that declaration. It's an automatic system process where the same transaction was recorded multiple times. The actual transfer amount is $3 million, but it's displayed as 100 times that. The sound of typing echoed through the meeting room. I immediately called the receiving company and explained the situation. Their system also confirmed the same issue, and it turned out that the actual amount received was $3 million, the correct amount. I apologize for the confusion. It was a display error on the system. As I hung up the phone, the atmosphere in the meeting room completely changed. Thank goodness. Really, thank goodness. Mia's eyes welled up again, but this time with tears of relief. Sighs of relief could be heard around the room. The tension in the meeting room eased for a moment, but I furrowed my brows deeply. This incident had exposed a serious flaw in the system. If left unaddressed, the same problem could happen again. We need to review the system. The room fell silent at my words. Call Mr. Wilson. David immediately stood up and left the room. Meanwhile, Mia looked at me with a puzzled expression. Thank you so much. No, I'm just glad it didn't turn into a bigger issue. I can't thank you enough, she said, but her voice carried a hint of confusion. Sorry if this sounds rude, but who exactly are you? The other employees, curious as well, leaned in to listen. It was only natural for them to wonder. After all, someone who usually never showed his face had suddenly appeared, resolved a $300 million crisis in minutes, and now demanded to see the president. It was understandable for them to find it strange. Just then, the meeting room door swung open. Oh, John, you actually came. President Thomas Wilson burst into the room, slightly out of breath. Usually a composed and sharp-looking man, today he seemed unusually disheveled. His tie was slightly crooked, and a thin sheen of sweat covered his temple. It's been a while, Thomas. I raised my hand lightly in greeting. It's really good to see you again. I heard about the $300 million situation. My stomach has been hurting all morning because of it. And then I was told that you had solved the problem. Thomas spoke quickly, clutching his chest as he let out a small, relieved breath. Yeah, it was just a system issue. I've already taken care of it, so don't worry. When I said that, Thomas looked visibly relieved, reaching to straighten his crooked tie. As expected of you, Jean. You're always so reliable. Though I must say, situations like this really take a toll on my heart. Though his voice still carried a bit of tension, it was clear his shoulders had relaxed. You should try to act a bit more dignified as the president. I couldn't help but chuckle, and Thomas scratched his head sheepishly. Sorry. I guess I just lost my composure. Still fidgeting with his tie, Thomas tried to restore his usual polished look. It was rare to see Mr. Wilson, normally so poised, appearing so flustered. But it was clear that the quick resolution of the company's crisis had brought him a great sense of relief. A humble president and an ordinary employee openly pointing things out to him. No matter how you looked at it, it was a strange situation. Mr. Wilson, who is this person? Oh, right. Mia, this is probably your first time meeting him. Clearing his throat, Thomas composed himself and spoke with a more serious tone. This is John Taylor. He's one of the founding members of our company. He also designed the core system infrastructure we use. Do you know CCI? It's the highest level certification in networking, and he holds it. What? Mia blinked in shock. Mr. Wilson looked at me with a nostalgic expression. Since he mostly works from home, you probably didn't know. John was my senior in the university lab. He's far more talented than I am, and I still rely on him for technical matters. Hey, don't say that, Thomas. You're the company president now. I'm just a regular employee. That's right. I'm a founding member, but not an executive or a manager. That was my own decision. When we founded the company more than 10 years ago, I chose to focus entirely on system design and development. Though I was offered executive positions several times, I turned them all down. I genuinely enjoy writing code much more than managing people or making business decisions. Besides, taking on a managerial role would inevitably cut into my free development time. That's why, once the company was on track, I chose to become a regular employee. Though unlike me, David, also a founding member, remains deeply involved in the company's core operations. As a board member, He plays a vital role in steering the company. Even when I continue working remotely, he frequently checks in, saying things like, "Everyone misses seeing you at the office." It's probably his sense of responsibility and his caring nature. By the way, Mr. Wilson, I have two proposals. First, we need to overhaul the system to prevent errors like this. I want to completely review the display processing. Mr. Wilson immediately nodded at my words. And the other one. I paused for a moment and looked at Michael, who was standing in the corner of the meeting room with his arms crossed. A review of personnel evaluations. I don't think someone who can't take responsibility for their subordinates' mistakes qualifies as a manager. Michael's face turned pale in an instant. A murmur arose from the surrounding employees. Furthermore, I continued in a calm voice, we need to thoroughly investigate what just happened. The tension in the meeting room grew even thicker. Pressuring Mia, unfairly blaming her without verifying the facts, and making derogatory remarks about her character. This cannot be overlooked. Michael's face stiffened at those words. No, that's not it. I was giving proper guidance. Proper guidance? I cut him off. Then are you saying that questioning the authenticity of her resume was part of that guidance? The color drained from Michael's face. Yelling without fact-checking, is that what you consider an appropriate decision as a manager? The meeting room fell completely silent, as if struck by a sudden chill. Moreover, those who echoed your comments and made heartless remarks also bear responsibility. I looked around the room. The employees who had been blaming Mia earlier now averted their eyes from me. Mr. Wilson, I looked directly at him. We should take appropriate action against everyone involved in this incident. Additionally, we need to implement harassment training company-wide. Mr. Wilson nodded gravely. You're right. Regarding the consequences, first, Michael's managerial qualifications will be suspended. He will undergo retraining, and his suitability will be reassessed. Michael tried to protest, but Mr. Wilson's stern gaze silenced him. Next, the employees who made inappropriate remarks will be required to submit a written apology and participate in a special training program. Hearing this, the employees involved shrank back. As decided by Mr. Wilson, Michael was suspended from his managerial position for 3 months and was required to complete a rigorous retraining program. The employees who made inappropriate comments also had to go through special training to reflect on their actions. Meanwhile, the system overhaul turned out to be more complex than expected. Since then, I've been coming to the office about 3 times a week. On my way to the development room, I passed through the sales floor and heard a cheerful voice. Good morning, John. The voice belonged to Amelia. Now in her 3rd year at the company, she's known as a top performer in the sales department, or rather, she used to be known as one. Lately, it seems her performance has been slipping. Good morning. I nodded lightly while noticing her flashy makeup and outfit. Considering the company's dress code, she was definitely pushing the limits. Are you heading to the development room again today? I could make you some tea. Amelia spoke in a sweet, syrupy voice. Ever since she found out that I'm a founding member, she's been openly trying to approach me like this. No, that's not necessary. I firmly declined. But Amelia didn't give up. Oh, come on. You're always so distant, John. You really are interesting. Just then, Mia walked by holding some documents. The moment Amelia noticed her, her tone changed completely. Oh, Mia, you're still here? About that $300 million incident the other day. That must have been rough. I mean, normally you can't even imagine making such a huge mistake. You must have some seriously thick skin to still be coming to work. Mia's face tensed up for a moment. It felt as if her heart had been stabbed by a needle. That issue has already been resolved, hasn't it? I spoke calmly but firmly. It was a system error, not Mia's fault. That was clearly explained at last week's company-wide meeting. Yeah, but... Amelia, I interrupted her. By the way, have you met your sales target for this month? Amelia's expression stiffened. Well, not yet. Then maybe you should put your energy into improving your performance instead of picking on others. Why not focus on boosting your sales? Amelia was at a loss for words for a moment, then hurriedly retreated to the sales floor. Mia looked at me, letting out a small sigh. Thank you. No problem. I turned to Mia and spoke sincerely. In situations like that, it's better to speak your mind. You didn't do anything wrong, so you should hold your head high. There's no reason for anyone to blame you. Besides, I paused for a moment before continuing. Actually, it was your careful checking that caught the mistake in the first place. That's an accomplishment. Hearing that, Mia gave a small, relieved smile and said, "Thank you." Her expression showed a hint of genuine relief. John, actually. I always thought it was better to just endure things. I didn't want to hurt anyone or cause any trouble. Her voice carried the weight of the struggles she'd been holding inside. But she continued. But I realize that's not the right way to think. I want to contribute more to this company. I've actually come up with some improvement ideas for the system. Could you take a look? Her eyes, once hesitant, now shone with newfound determination, as if breaking free from the chains of self-restraint. I replied, of course, and looked at her phone. It was filled with bullet-pointed ideas on efficiency improvements, meticulously written. This is impressive. You came up with all of this. Yes. I used to work in system development at my previous job, so I thought maybe I could put that experience to use. But until now, I just didn't feel confident enough to speak up. Though she spoke modestly, her proposals were spot on, well thought out and practical enough to implement right away. There's no need to hold back. Speak up whenever you have ideas. Just be yourself. I'm sure there are many people who would value your input. Mia widened her eyes slightly, then gave a small, embarrassed smile. From that day on, she started to change little by little. One day, she approached my desk cautiously and spoke up. John, about this part of the UI, do you think we could make it a bit more user-friendly? Specifically, the moment I asked, her eyes lit up as if she had been waiting for this, and she eagerly started talking. Yes, for example, the order history flow. I was thinking of placing an order history button on the top page, and then... Her voice, filled with enthusiasm, was nothing like her previous reserved tone. She even pulled out a tablet and started sketching screen layout ideas with great energy. If we do it this way, users should be able to reach their desired page with minimal effort. By arranging the menu with the actual screen size in mind, I think we can also reduce unnecessary eye movement. You've already put this much together. Actually, I tried out a few mock-up tools on my own and even made some A/P test style screens. Of course, this was just something I did on my own, so we still need to establish formal testing procedures. Mia continued working on the tablet, clearly enjoying herself. That's impressive. Honestly, it looks much more user-friendly than the current layout. I didn't expect you to have put so much thought into it. At my words, Mia whispered a small yes to herself. I tend to lose sight of my surroundings when I get into something I love. I really enjoy thinking about designs and creating UI. But at my previous company, I would get overly excited and push ahead on my own. Before I knew it, I was isolated. Eventually, I couldn't stay there anymore, so I left. This time, I tried to keep a low profile, telling myself not to stand out. Her hesitant voice revealed a mixture of insecurity and a lingering complex. But when you told me to just be myself, I realized I don't have to keep holding back. Thank you. Her cheeks turned a faint shade of pink. Looking straight at me with newfound confidence, she seemed much more self-assured than before. A month passed, and the office had fully regained its usual calm atmosphere after overcoming the recent trouble. Mia, in particular, achieved significant results. Her proposed improvements dramatically boosted operational efficiency, earning her well-deserved recognition. Next Friday, we'll have an awards ceremony and a social gathering. It was Mr. Wilson, more enthusiastic than anyone, making the announcement. He probably wanted to turn the page on the previous incident while celebrating Mia's achievements. That's a bit much just for me, Mia said modestly, but the office was already buzzing with celebratory excitement. The atmosphere had completely changed from the chaos a month ago, now filled with bright, positive energy. Just then, Mia quietly approached my desk. "John, about next week's social gathering. Would you come?" she asked while looking down slightly, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Me? Him? I'm not really good with crowded places," I answered honestly. Mia, looking a bit flustered, quickly continued, "I understand. I know you're busy, and I know it's a hassle for you to come to the office when you usually work from home, but could you please?" Her voice grew a bit more assertive. "There's so much I want to ask you about the system, the upcoming improvements. I've always wanted to consult with you, but I never got the chance. Like about the server configuration, the libraries used in the recent update, and also about load balancing around the network. I've been interested for a while, but I just didn't know who to talk to. You're only here 3 days a week, and I know you're busy, so I thought this might be my only chance." Mia's words kept pouring out as if she couldn't hold them back anymore. Her eyes conveyed just how serious she was about discussing technical matters. "Haha, that much, huh? You're making me feel a bit overwhelmed." I couldn't help but chuckle, slightly taken aback by her enthusiasm. But seeing her eyes light up with such passion, I couldn't find a reason to refuse. "And I also want to properly thank you. I never got to fully express my gratitude." Her voice softened, trembling slightly with embarrassment. Seeing her like that made it even harder to say no. All right. I guess I'll go to the party." "Really? Oh, I'm sorry. I just got so happy." Mia's face lit up with a bright smile, clasping her hands together in front of her chest. It might have been the first time I'd seen her so genuinely joyful. "I'm really happy. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone will be excited, though I might be the most." She added the last words in a slightly quieter voice, so soft that I would have missed it if I hadn't been listening carefully. Even so, that cheerful tone clearly reached my heart. "Well, it might not be so bad after all," I murmured to myself. I'm not usually fond of crowded places like parties, but with how earnestly she invited me, I couldn't refuse. Besides, seeing her genuinely happy about it didn't feel bad at all. A few days later. "Now then, let's raise a toast to celebrate Mia's achievements." With Mr. Wilson's enthusiastic call, the social gathering began. The voices of chatting employees echoed through the banquet hall of a luxury hotel. "John, you have to try this dish. It's delicious." Amelia, with a sultry voice, slid into the seat next to me. Her breath already carried the scent of alcohol. "Oh, really?" Even with my curt response, Amelia didn't give up. "Come on, don't be so cold. How about I feed you some of this sashimi?" I sighed inwardly, glancing around the room. I noticed Mr. Wilson deep in conversation with Mia. "Mia, you really did an amazing job. I'm truly grateful to have such a talented employee join our company." Mr. Wilson, his face slightly flushed, spoke warmly. Mia bowed politely, responding modestly. "John, are you listening?" Amelia clung to my arm. "Sorry, I just need to use the restroom." I gently shook off her hand and stood up. Instead of the restroom, I headed to a small terrace connected to the banquet hall. The night breeze felt refreshing. "Hey, John." I turned around at the sound of Mia's voice behind me. Standing on the terrace with a pleasant night air around me, I looked back. "So this is where you were. I've been looking for you." "Sorry. I just needed to escape for a bit." Amelia was being a bit persistent. When I said that with a wry smile, Mia let out a soft laugh. "I saw that. You don't usually show your emotions, so it was kind of amusing. Yeah, I'm just not used to it. The lively chatter from the party could still be heard through the terrace doors. Tonight's social gathering was more festive than usual, especially with Mia receiving an award from President Wilson. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits. Amid that cheerful noise, Mia hesitated for a moment before speaking. It feels so nice to be accepted like this. If I hadn't met you, I think I would have stayed trapped in my shell. Her voice was soft, but there was a deep sincerity behind her words. When our eyes met, it felt like, just for that moment, the world around us fell completely silent. You don't have to exaggerate. You changed because of your own strength, right? I tried to downplay it, but Mia slowly shook her head. No, it was a big change for me. It's because you were there that I am who I am now. A gentle breeze rustled her hair. Despite the distant laughter from the banquet, it felt like we were in a different, quieter world. As I looked at her, I quietly embraced the emotions welling up inside me. I used to choose remote work to avoid coming to the office, but lately, I found myself looking forward to it. When I talk to Mia, it feels like I'm being pulled out of my shell. There's this strange sense of excitement. It's like her passion draws me in, stirring something inside me. I feel the same way, honestly. I used to think coming to the office was a hassle, but lately, it doesn't feel that way anymore. I guess your enthusiasm is rubbing off on me. I ended up admitting it, feeling a bit embarrassed. Mia blinked in surprise, then gave me a gentle smile. Really? So you're coming to the office? Because of me? No, it's just part of my work. But I guess talking to you makes it enjoyable, so I end up coming in more often. A brief silence followed. When I looked down, I noticed Mia's fingertips trembling slightly. I'm not exactly used to this kind of atmosphere either, but strangely, it doesn't feel unpleasant. Rather, the gentle tension feels surprisingly comfortable. Thank you. Hearing you say that makes me feel a bit saved, too. The moment I muttered those words, her fingertips brushed against the back of my hand. Whether it was intentional or just a coincidence, I couldn't tell. But just that brief touch made my heart pound. Neither of us said a word, nor did we move away. We just stood there for a few seconds, caught in the moment. The night breeze gently passed between us, rustling her hair. The distant sounds of music and chatter from the banquet felt far away, as if this place were a world of its own. Excuse me. Just then, the sound of the terrace door opening startled us. We instinctively pulled our hands apart. When I turned around, there stood Mr. Wilson, looking cheerful with his tie slightly loosened. Oh, there you are. I've been looking for you, Mia. Mr. Wilson, is something the matter? Mia replied, her voice slightly high-pitched. Mr. Wilson waved his hand with a big smile. We're moving on to the second party. It wouldn't be the same without you, Mia. We need you there. Yes, I'll be right there. We watched as Mr. Wilson hurried off, and then we glanced away from each other, feeling a bit awkward. But I noticed Mia stealing a quick glance at me, a small smile forming on her lips. Even though it was just a brief touch and a short exchange, the warmth that left in my heart hadn't faded. Shall we go back? Yeah, let's do that. With casual words, we left the terrace behind. The lively laughter from the party once again reached our ears, but the quiet, gentle glow from that brief moment remained firmly in both of our hearts. A few days later, hey, I heard you're quite the popular guy lately. David popped his head into the development room, speaking in a teasing tone. What are you talking about? I tried to keep my voice calm, but I could tell it sounded slightly strained. Come on, man. Amelia's been all over you, and there's a rumor going around about you and Mia. It's nothing. They just hang around because of my position. It's always been that way. The words came out just like they used to, back when I didn't really care. But even as I said them, I knew I wasn't the same as before. Actually, it felt pathetic to use those words to cover up how I really felt. The sound of my typing momentarily stopped. The brief silence somehow echoed in my heart. That's why working from home was comfortable. I didn't have to deal with unnecessary human relationships. But you've been coming to the office more often lately. David's words made my chest tighten a bit. People around me had noticed this change, especially David. His gentle tone made it clear that he had been warmly watching over my shift. And that realization made my heart feel unexpectedly warm. Yeah. After a moment of thought, I answered honestly. It's partly because of work, but also, I just kind of want to be near Mia lately. As soon as I said it, I felt something inside me being set free. Oh, David's eyes lit up with excitement. That reaction gave me a mix of embarrassment and a strange sense of liberation. It's rare to see you like that. Since I started talking to Mia, it feels like my world has gradually changed. It's like colors are slowly seeping into what used to be a black and white landscape. It's not a dramatic transformation, but it's definitely a change happening within me. When I talk to her, I can't help but smile. Even when it's not about work, even the smallest conversations feel enjoyable. I've never thought talking with someone could be this fun. And recently, I realized something. The way I've kept my distance from people to protect myself, it might have actually been an incredibly narrow world. My fingers, resting on the keyboard, unconsciously tap out a rhythm. It's like a quiet melody of new feelings playing inside my heart. Until now, I was only thinking about staying safe inside the cage I built for myself. But when I took a step outside that cage, the world turned out to be much wider and warmer than I thought. My voice trembles a bit, but it's not out of embarrassment. It's the joy of finally facing my own truth. I see. David's voice carried a sense of deep relief and happiness. That single word made me feel the warmth of him accepting everything I had just confessed. At that moment, my phone rang. The screen displayed Mia. We had exchanged contact information just the other day. Feeling my heart race, I tapped to answer the call. Hello. John, help me. Mia's voice was trembling, and in the next moment, the call abruptly ended with a faint clicking sound. Mia? Mia? No matter how desperately I called out, there was no response. A cold shiver ran down my spine. What's wrong? David leaned in, looking concerned. I don't know. Mia sounded like she was calling for help, but then the call just cut off. As I tried to find the right words, panic started to cloud my mind. Just then, Amelia came rushing down the hallway, slightly out of breath. John. Perfect timing. Just now, Mr. Wilson and Mia went into. Which floor was it again? That rarely used reception room, and the door's locked. It won't open. The door's locked. Which room? What's the room number? Amelia looked around as if trying to recall, then shouted, I think it's the old reception room on the 12th floor. It's hardly ever used. I tried to follow them, but the door was locked. The old reception room. That place still has a separate system, locked due to security reasons. Mia, did she get called there? I immediately looked at David, sensing the urgency. He quickly pulled out his phone. Do you know the system password? You have that certification, right? Of course. That room still has the old building's electronic lock, and you need to enter a code to open the door. Suppressing my growing anxiety, I dashed toward the emergency stairs. Amelia followed right behind me. Waiting for the elevator would take too long. The door's locked, which means Mr. Wilson might have. No way. Amelia, panting, glanced sideways at me. You don't think Mr. Wilson is forcing Mia? Calm down. We just need to hurry. As we raced up the emergency stairs, my heartbeat grew louder and faster. Mia's trembling voice from the phone wouldn't leave my mind, even for a second. Faster, I needed to make sure she was safe. When we reached the 12th floor, I stopped in front of the old door. I tried turning the handle, but it was firmly locked and wouldn't budge. This is it. The doorknob is completely locked. Amelia spoke breathlessly. Step back. I'll open it. I quickly operated my smartphone and accessed the internal security management screen. Normally, only the General Affairs or Security Department would have access, but I held a rare security network certification that only a handful of people worldwide possess. After all, I'm the one who built the internal system. There's no way I can't get through. I accessed the management screen, inputting several IDs and passwords. A small electronic beep sounded, and the red light turned green. All right, it should open now. There was a click as the door unlocked. Amelia gasped audibly. Let's go. When I pushed the door open, I saw Thomas and Mia in the dimly lit room. A heavy, oppressive atmosphere hung in the air. Usually calm and collected, Thomas now had a hardened expression I had never seen before. Mia was pressed against the wall, looking pale and staring at us. Ah, John, her voice was faint and trembling slightly. Seeing her like that filled me with an overwhelming sense of dread. Thomas, what are you thinking, bringing Mia here in the dark and locking the door? It's insane. I tried to sound calm, but my voice came out low and rough. Mia looked at me with eyes pleading for help. What do you mean? What am I thinking? That's what I want to know, John. Who the hell are you anyway? Stop getting in my way. That single line sounded sharper than anything I'd ever heard from the usually mild-mannered Thomas. I could feel the tension in the room grow even tighter. Since college, you've always been good at everything. Things that everyone else struggled with, you just handled effortlessly. But when they asked me to be the president when we started the company, I finally felt like I had won. You stayed a regular employee, and I became president. I thought I had finally beaten you. His words spilled out, revealing the jealousy and frustration he had been bottling up for years. Dark feelings that he never showed in the office or meetings were now pouring out. Being asked to be president was great, but in the end, the company can't function without you. The critical systems and networks, all of it, is in your hands. I'm just a figurehead, always in your shadow. So at the very least, I didn't want to lose Mia. As he forced out those words, his eyes were filled with a mix of inferiority and despair. I just couldn't bear to give Mia up too. You've taken the job, the reputation, everything. Every time I saw her looking at you, it drove me crazy with jealousy. His voice quivered, and his ragged breathing disturbed the silence in the room. Thomas, I understand how you've been feeling, but doing this won't help anyone. Not Mia, not me, and not you. You're the president. There had to be a better way. I know that, but I couldn't stop it. This suffocating frustration inside me. Thomas's voice sounded on the verge of breaking down. Unable to hold back anymore, Mia spoke in a frail voice. Mr. Wilson, I really appreciate everything you've done for me, but being brought to a place like this with the door locked, I was really scared. Hearing those words, Thomas's head snapped up as if hit. He looked at Mia, desperate and regretful, but his eyes only reflected his guilt. Then Amelia, who had been standing quietly in the corner, took a step forward. She turned to Mr. Wilson, clenching her fists tightly as her voice trembled. Mr. Wilson, I always thought of you as a kind, albeit incisive person. People often said you were just for show or too frivolous, but you were the one who recognized my abilities at work. You didn't just treat me like some pretty face. You encouraged me, saying I had talent in sales. I was really grateful for that. After spilling out her thoughts in one breath, Amelia, with a pained expression, looked straight at the downcast Thomas. But seeing you corner a woman like this, I just can't accept it. I always thought you were someone who saved me. I never wanted to see you hurt someone like Mia. Her voice was filled with disappointment and sadness. Thomas raised his face slightly, as if trying to take in Amelia's words, but then dropped his gaze again, unable to respond. Mia, Are you okay? You must have been really scared just now. Let's go. Amelia took Mia's hand gently and pulled her close. When Mia looked up in surprise, Amelia nodded firmly and gently straightened Mia's slightly disheveled hair. Thank you. Mia whispered weakly and let out a small sigh. Amelia gave a faint smile and led Mia toward the exit. Thomas, I spoke in a low, steady voice. I don't think your feelings are a lie. You liked me, didn't you? But you went about it completely the wrong way. As a president, or rather, as a human being, you crossed a line you should never have crossed. Thomas didn't respond, just clenched his trembling fists. He kept his head down, and I continued calmly. It doesn't matter how you feel, whether you lack confidence or feel jealous of me. That's your own business. But dragging your employee into it, that's unacceptable. Right now, just take responsibility without making excuses. Understood. John, Thomas murmured weakly, still standing motionless, as if rooted to the spot. It was like he was trapped in place by the weight of the situation. I let out a deep sigh and walked away from him. Mia was lying down quietly in another reception room after being accompanied by Amelia. She seemed exhausted, but now she looked relieved, covered with a blanket and resting her eyes. I had called the medical staff just in case, but fortunately, there were no physical injuries for now. That was a relief, but emotional support would be essential. After making sure Mia was resting, I found Amelia waiting in the hallway. I gave her a slight nod. Thanks. I really appreciate you supporting Mia. Amelia almost turned away with a slightly proud look, but her expression softened a bit as she shrugged. It's nothing. I just did what anyone would do. I couldn't just ignore that situation. Though her tone sounded a bit irritated, she let out a deep breath, clearly relieved. Her expression was different from her usual flashy demeanor. There was a seriousness that showed she truly cared. Actually, during the second party for Mia's celebration, Mr. Wilson was acting really strange. He kept trying to get close to Mia, so I was watching him carefully. Then I saw them go into that quiet reception room together, and when the door closed, it locked. I see. A chill ran through me as I thought about it. If Amelia hadn't noticed Mr. Wilson's odd behavior at that moment, if she hadn't realized that the door was locked, Mia might have faced an even more dangerous situation. Honestly, I'm really grateful you were there. I don't even want to think about what could have happened. When I said that, Amelia looked a little embarrassed and glanced away. Well, usually I'm just the loud one at parties, but I just wanted to be helpful. I mean, despite everything, I really do like this company. As she spoke with a shy smile, I couldn't help but let out a breath of relief. Then Amelia shifted her gaze awkwardly and started to speak again, hesitantly. By the way, at first everyone treated Mia like a star because of her looks. That really got on my nerves, and I was pretty harsh to her. She bit her lip, struggling to get the words out, but I could sense a mix of embarrassment and sincerity in her tone. But it's weird, right? At first, Mia was so quiet, but then she started giving input on other people's work too, kind of nosy, really. But somehow, I ended up not being able to hate her. Amelia let out a wry smile and gave a small shrug. I couldn't help but smile back and nod. I get it. She looks kind of cool on the outside, but in reality, she's passionate and tends to get involved. I don't dislike that about her. Right? And she's actually really good at her job. She's not just a pretty face, unlike me. Amelia lowered her gaze, a hint of self-deprecation in her expression. I could sense a slight trace of loneliness on her face. I softened my tone a bit, trying to encourage her. That's not true. I know how hard you work. Since I started coming to the office more, I've noticed your achievements may not always be visible in the numbers. But for example, the other day when that new sales guy was struggling, you quietly helped him out, didn't you? At first, he was completely overwhelmed, but after you gave him advice, his performance started improving. That kind of support behind the scenes is crucial, even if it goes unnoticed. Wait, you saw that? Amelia blinked in surprise. I nodded and continued earnestly. Your name might not come up in the sales results, but I'm sure that Rookie's growth is thanks to you. I've seen how you pay attention to those around you. Thank you. Wow, I almost feel like crying. Amelia hesitated for a moment, closing her mouth as if at a loss for words, but then she looked up again with a warm smile. Her expression was genuine and filled with relief. You know, John, you always seem a bit clumsy with words, but then out of nowhere, you say something really kind. Is that so? I'm just saying what I think is normal. Somehow that cheered me up a little. Thank you. She wiped the corners of her eyes slightly as she spoke. By the way, you're into Mia too, right? Huh. Her unexpected remark left me momentarily speechless. Amelia grinned slightly. There's a rumor going around the office, you know. I mean, you two just seem to click so well. No wonder people are curious. At first, I didn't like it, but after what happened, I kind of get it now. No, it's not like that. I'm not really. Aha, nailed it. I guess I should find myself a good guy too. Oh wait, isn't David still single? With a mischievous smile, Amelia lightened her tone and walked down the hallway. About a week after that incident, Thomas openly confessed his misconduct at the board meeting. He spoke openly about locking Mia in the reception room and the jealousy and frustration that led him to do it, without hiding anything. He bowed deeply. The board members exchanged glances and eventually nodded with stern expressions. Mr. Wilson, this incident is far too serious. You will have to resign from your position as president. Do you agree? Yes. I sincerely apologize once again. Despite being one of the founding members, Thomas had let his long-held inferiority complex crush him, and in the end, he chose to walk away from it all. Just before leaving the room, Thomas glanced back at me, squeezing out his words. One day, I will come back as someone who can proudly call himself your junior again. I'll work hard to be accepted as a colleague once more. Definitely. He bowed deeply once more, then walked out of the building, biting his lip. The employees watching his departure couldn't hide their mixed feelings of frustration and sadness. A man consumed by jealousy and insecurity, choosing to leave the company. His final words carried a clumsy but sincere result. Since the company couldn't remain leaderless, the board immediately needed to appoint a new president, and that's when they turned to me. Though I preferred working remotely and freely, the board unanimously decided that the company now needed my leadership and technical skills. Well, I guess I have no choice, I muttered as I sat down in the president's chair. Honestly, I didn't feel suited for management, and I wasn't confident about leading people. But David and the other employees strongly encouraged me. They all agreed that I was the best choice to help rebuild the company after the turmoil caused by Thomas's incident. It was time to leave behind the version of myself that kept to the sidelines and step into the spotlight. I had to make up my mind. The first few days after taking office as president were a whirlwind. With Thomas gone, all the decision-making processes left vacant, as well as countless internal inquiries, suddenly fell on me. On top of that, I still had ongoing development projects, making every day incredibly hectic. Even so, thanks to David and the other board members supporting me, I was managing to keep up. Who would have thought? You the president? Life sure is unpredictable. One day, during lunch, David popped into my office with a teasing smile. It's hectic, but well, it's fulfilling in its own way. By the way, what's going on with Amelia? The one who's been bothering you? David hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting around. Then he shrugged with a wry smile. Well, the other day she asked me out for dinner, so we're going to meet up soon. I mean, who would have thought? Amelia of all people. Honestly, I'm just as surprised. Wait, seriously. You're not joking, right? I reacted with genuine surprise. David hurriedly waved his hands, looking flustered. No, no. Nothing's set in stone yet. It's just a casual meal, really. But since then, she's been steadily improving her sales performance, so maybe she's in a good place. Her flashy look and easygoing attitude haven't changed, but it seems like her skills are finally catching up. Well, I don't really dislike her, so who knows? Something might happen. Aha, really? I never thought you'd have something like that going on. I teased him. David scratched his nose, clearly a bit embarrassed. That gesture hadn't changed since our student days, and it made me feel a bit nostalgic. So how about you? You're pretty busy now as president, but what's going on with Mia since then? Since I became president, Mia's been kind of distant. She doesn't talk to me as casually as she used to, I said. As I spoke, memories from the other day came to mind. Since recovering from the incident, Mia had gradually regained her energy. She continued to come up with efficiency improvement ideas, showing her usual competence. But still, she seemed to be holding back a bit. Well, it makes sense. I mean, her close colleague suddenly became the president. It's only natural she wouldn't know how to approach you. I get it, but I didn't think she'd hold back this much. I just wish she'd talk to me more easily, like before. I pouted a bit. David laughed. Being president is tough. It was true. Ever since I took on this role, I had become more aware of how delicate human relationships could be. When I was just focused on technology, I didn't have to worry about things like this. After an afternoon meeting, as I walked down the hallway, I spotted Mia at just the right moment. She was holding some documents, seemingly having just finished some interdepartmental work, and let out a small sigh. Hey, Mia. You doing okay? That meeting earlier seemed pretty intense. Oh, President Taylor, I mean John, yes, I'm fine. I received a lot of feedback, so I'll be reworking the improvement plan. Even after giving a presentation, she was still smiling, not showing a hint of fatigue. She was as resilient as ever, but I couldn't help but notice a slight tension in her expression. I glanced around, making sure the area was relatively quiet, and lowered my voice. Got a minute? I need to talk to you. It's not anything serious. Oh yes, of course. I guided her to the landing of the stairs, a quiet space away from interruptions. As the door closed, the slightly cool air brushed against my skin. Mia looked at me with a bit of nervousness in her eyes. You know, lately when I come to the office, you seem kind of distant. You're not as relaxed as before. Am I? I've been trying my best, but it's hard to casually approach someone who's now the president. She looked down apologetically. Since I became president, she's been like this, cautious and formal. Just a few months ago, we used to joke around and talk about tech without a second thought. So here's the deal. If you keep being distant, I'll have to cut your pay. That's an order from the president. What? That's too harsh. Isn't that a bit unreasonable? Mia's eyes widened in surprise. Her expression was so adorable that I almost couldn't help but laugh. But I didn't want to let the moment slip, so I quickly got to the point. Also, as a presidential order, I'd like you to go out for dinner with me after work. And well, it's hard to put into words, but I'd like us to date, as a couple. It wasn't the smoothest confession, but it was how I truly felt. Mia's expression softened from surprise to something warmer, almost affectionate. Date with me? She hesitantly asked for confirmation. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, and I could see a hint of tears glimmering in her eyes. Yeah, that's right. Also, the pay cut thing was just a joke. But seriously, stop holding back around me. Whether it's work or personal stuff, just be honest. I think things will work out better that way. Mia was momentarily at a loss for words. Her lips slightly parted, then suddenly a tear slipped down her cheek. Oh, sorry. I'm just really happy. It's strange to cry at a time like this, right? Her voice was a mix of relief and joy. She hurriedly wiped her tears with her sleeve, but the corners of her eyes still glistened. It was as if all the tension she'd been holding in had finally melted away. It's not strange. I'm not used to this kind of thing either, and I'm really embarrassed right now. A smile naturally broke across my face, seeing that Mia, still caught between laughing and crying, gradually seemed to calm down and looked at me directly. Thank you. This is the first time I've ever felt so happy. No, thank you. Just talk to me more casually from now on. Being called President Taylor is more than enough just for work, okay? I understand, John. She wiped away the last of her tears and gave a shy smile. Watching her like that, a warm feeling spread through my chest. And so we took our first step together, not just as a president and a subordinate, but as two people who truly care for each other as a couple. Of course, there would still be many challenges and work ahead, but together, I knew we could overcome them. That thought filled me with confidence. We don't hire low-income individuals from single-parent households. I saw something extraordinary at that very time. The employees started laughing as soon as the president said it. I pushed the words out and turned away from them, saying, "I'm leaving." I exited the room while feigning composure because I was really upset and angry. Has anything occurred yesterday? Tell me about it. After saying that, I started to describe the events of the previous day. My mother's face flushed with rage while I was speaking, and she balled her fists. Are you serious? Her expression changed to one of utter wrath as soon as she uttered that. She reached for her phone. Cancel the account worth $500 million. What? There was a moment of stillness before the president frantically responded. He never imagined that his disdain for lone mothers would come back to punish him so severely. I'm Jessica Sanders, and I'm 52 years old. I grew up in a little Midwest city where I was born. My mom and I stood by one another's sides after my dad passed away too soon. Despite our low income, I was raised to be industrious and strong because of my mother's hard labor. I studied economics at a state university after being awarded a scholarship. I worked part-time jobs while attending college to help my mom while focusing on my studies. My life started to gradually come together as a result of that. I was hired by a local bank when I graduated. For almost 30 years, I worked there, developing my financial expertise. However, I started to worry about my future and made the decision to quit the job due to recent personnel reductions and the deteriorating work climate. I'm looking for a job right now and want to use my experience to better my career. Even though I occasionally feel the effects of aging, I think my greatest strength is my experience. I don't regret missing the opportunity to get married because I gave my all to my job. I'm currently searching for a steady job. I want to start over as a different person and demonstrate my skills once more. I went to a job interview at First National Bank's headquarters one day. With locations around the country, First National Bank is a significant financial organization that provides a wide range of services, such as corporate investments, small business assistance, personal savings and loans, and consultancy. It is remarkably stable. I'm not sure if the rumors that they've been promoting efficiency-focused management to increase their influence are accurate. It is said that the bank's president is preoccupied with getting things done quickly. I felt that a large bank would be the ideal setting for me to leverage my experience in the financial sector, which is why I chose to interview at this particular bank. In addition to job progress and financial security, I hope to advance in this field even more. I took the risk and applied for the interview because I think I would be a great fit working for a renowned, reputable bank. I was surrounded by a sense of energy as soon as I entered First National Bank's headquarters. Although I thought my prior experiences could be useful here, I was unable to completely get over my nervousness. That didn't deter me, though, and I made it to the interview room on time. During the interview, I answered each question sincerely and felt a sense of accomplishment. The interviewers didn't show any particular expressions, but at least their reactions weren't cold, which was a relief. As I walked down the hallway after the interview, I suddenly heard a voice behind me. "Hey, you there?" "Yes?" I turned around a bit confused as I responded. A man with a sharp gaze approached me with a blank expression. The intensity of his presence made me involuntarily hold my breath. There was no doubt he was the bank president, Thomas Taylor. Thomas held immense power as the president of First National Bank. Currently 58 years old, he graduated with a degree in economics and earned an MBA from a young age. He showcased his talents and quickly rose to prominence within the bank. However, behind his success, he was known for being ruthless and self-centered. Although his management skills were highly regarded in the financial industry, there were rumors that his methods were extremely self-serving. When he was appointed president, whispers circulated that he had used his employees to crush his competitors. As these thoughts ran through my mind, the president stopped in front of me and asked with a piercing glare, "You didn't just interview here, did you?" "Yes, I interviewed today. My name is Jessica Sanders." I noticed my voice was stiffer than I expected and chuckled to myself inwardly. He looked me up and down from head to toe and let out a mocking snort. "You're job hunting at your age?" "What?" I was bewildered by his unexpected comment. "What do you mean by that?" As I struggled to grasp his meaning, he gave me a derisive smirk. "You look to be about my age, or are you just aging poorly?" At that moment, I felt a chill deep in my chest. However, I managed to stay calm and barely replied. "I'm 52 years old." "Oh, I knew it. 52 isn't the age for job hunting. Maybe it's time to pick up some retirement hobbies instead." "What?" Before I could process his words, he continued cornering me further. "Well, as long as someone's capable, I won't complain. But I doubt we'd hire someone that close to retirement. Don't get your hopes up too much. Just wait for the result." Humiliation and anger swirled in my chest, but I knew arguing here wouldn't be wise. "Excuse me," that was all I said before turning and walking away. I made sure my steps were steady, but inside, my resentment toward the president's mockery was boiling. A week later, I received an official job offer from First National Bank and returned to the headquarters for the onboarding process. A mix of excitement over the offer, nerves about my new workplace, and unease regarding the president churned within me as I walked down the hallway reviewing my paperwork. I saw the president appear in front of me once again. I let out an involuntary whisper. "Excuse me." "Oh, you're that job applicant from last time, aren't you? What are you doing here?" He noticed me and stopped in his tracks. His icy gaze was as intimidating as ever, and I almost flinched. "Well, I received an official job offer from your bank. I look forward to working with you." "Really?" I could have sworn I checked the list of new hires. "What was your name again?" "It's Jessica Sanders," I answered. When I did, the president furrowed his brow as though trying to recall something. "Oh yeah, I think that was your name. I do remember there was one applicant from a single-parent household in this batch. That was probably me." He narrowed his eyes, looking surprised. "Well, it was you. You grew up in a single-parent household. Wow. I didn't think our recruiters would hire someone from that background." "Well, is there a problem with that?" I asked, my voice a mixture of shock and confusion. He answered with a look of disdain. "Oh, absolutely. People from single-parent households don't exactly radiate the kind of class you'd expect from a banker." "I don't think that's true." His words pierced me like a dagger. I managed to mutter a small rebuttal, but he sneered and continued. "Jessica, was it? Are you seriously trying to argue with the president of this bank?" "No, that's not my intention. I couldn't afford to lose this job." That thought held back my words. Eventually, he shrugged with irritation and walked off somewhere else. I quickly hurried away from the spot as well. Once I completed the paperwork and stepped outside, I took in the crisp, cold air, calming my turbulent emotions. Now that I had secured the position, I needed to carefully consider how to handle my interactions with him moving forward. That heavy feeling weighed on my chest after the offer letter. I attended the pre-employment orientation 2 weeks later. As I headed to the venue, I felt excitement about standing at the starting line of my new workplace, and a sense of motivation for the future bubbled up inside me. As I entered the room, a familiar figure approached from the back. It was the president. "Oh, I finally found you. I've been looking for you." "Wait, you've been looking for me," I replied, puzzled. "What does he want?" A bad feeling brushed over my mind. With a cold gaze fixed on me, he walked over slowly and said something outrageous. "Sorry, but your job offer has been revoked." "What?" I couldn't help but shout in disbelief. The other new hires and bank staff around us looked equally confused, unsure of what was happening. My mind went blank, but I summoned the courage to ask. "Did I do something wrong?" "Wrong? Wrong? Well, you did show a defiant attitude toward me before, but that's not the issue. We don't hire poor people from single-parent families." "What did you just say?" He sneered, his tone dripping with sarcasm. My eyes widened in shock. At that moment, I witnessed an unbelievable scene. The bank staff around us burst into laughter at his words. There was something strange about their expressions, and their smiles seemed strained. The new hires around me stood there in stunned silence. I felt as though my heart was being crushed on the spot. My lips trembled with humiliation, and I struggled to speak. "Why would you cancel my job offer just because I come from a single-parent household?" "I already told you before. People from single-parent families don't have the sophistication necessary for banking. Our bank has built a reputation as a major institution. We can't have someone like you, poor and nearing retirement age, working here." "Are you serious? That's unbelievably cruel." His words were as cold and cruel as ice, stabbing straight through me. I asked in a trembling voice, but he smirked. "Say whatever you want. I've already decided that you're not joining this bank. Go home." "Understood. I'm leaving." I forced out the words and turned my back. I tried to remain calm as I walked out of the room, but inside, sadness and anger raged. As I stepped outside the bank, I walked while confronting the emotions surging within me. I swore to myself that I would make the president pay for this humiliation. Biting my lip, I made a firm vow in my heart. When I arrived home, I stepped through the front door with heavy steps. Normally, I'd walk in the door and call out cheerfully, "I'm home." But today, I couldn't even do that. Noticing me, my mom, Karen, peered out from the kitchen. "Jessica, you're back early. Was the orientation at your new job already over?" "Well, yeah," I answered, trying to sound calm, but I could tell my voice was shaking slightly. Before my mom could say anything more, I hurried into my room. The next morning, at breakfast, my mom spoke to me again. "Jessica, did something happen yesterday? Talk to me. But it's fine, just tell me. I'm here to listen." Those words made me open up about what happened the day before. I told her that the president had canceled my job offer because I came from a single-parent household. As I spoke, my mom's face turned red with anger, and she clenched her fists. "Are you kidding me with that?" she snapped, grabbing her smartphone. "Mom, just wait," I said. "I'm calling that president right now." With a fearsome expression, my mom put the phone on speaker and efficiently connected to the president. After a few rings, his voice came through the speaker. "This is Thomas Taylor." "Oh, Thomas, you've got some nerve," my mom exclaimed. "I'm closing my $500 million account." "What?" After a brief silence, his panicked voice echoed. He had no idea that belittling a single-parent family would bring such harsh consequences. "What do you mean? Why all of a sudden?" "I just wanted to inform you that I'll be visiting your bank soon to handle the necessary paperwork. That's all. Please wait. I'll head to your house immediately." In a fluster, he announced he'd make time and ended the call. My mom calmly set her phone down. An hour later, the president arrived at our home. Our doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, Thomas was standing there. He looked shocked to see me. "Why are you here?" "This is my mom's and my home." "Your mom?" "Wait, don't tell me," he started. I nodded calmly as I replied, "Yes, the person who just called you, Karen Sanders, is my mother." "No way," his eyes widened in disbelief. "You're supposed to be some poor girl from a single-parent home." "Who are you calling poor?" "Oh no, Karen." At that moment, my mom appeared from the back where she had briefly stepped away. His voice trembled with fear as he shrank in front of her. "Karen, why on earth would you decide to close your $500 million account?" "Thomas, you're familiar with my mom, aren't you?" I looked straight at him. He quickly began explaining in a fluster. "Of course, she's the founder and chairwoman of Sanders Beauty, that renowned cosmetics company, and a private investor. She's one of our most important clients." My mom remained calm, her eyes cold as she gazed at him with a faint smile on her lips. My mom, Karen Sanders, is known both domestically and internationally as the chairwoman of Sanders Beauty. The brand is famous for its high-quality skincare products made with natural ingredients and has established itself as a highly trusted name. Since I was a child, I admired her commitment to the principle. True beauty comes from health, and her dedication to social contribution and environmental protection. It was more than just business to her. My mom placed great importance on fulfilling social responsibilities, not just achieving corporate success, and she stood firm on her values. Her upbringing was unimaginably harsh. She grew up in a rural village shortly after World War II, living in extreme poverty. In her teens, she lost her father and supported her mother and younger siblings while attending school. Because of those hardships, she carried a strong resolve and left her hometown to seize new opportunities in the city. She gave up attending college, studied business and marketing on her own, and paved her way through hands-on experience. That's why she was often praised as a practical genius. She started a small cosmetic sales business and gradually built it from the ground up. Even after marrying my dad and having me, we didn't live a wealthy life for a while. However, thanks to her honest business approach and innovative products, she earned her customers' trust. Eventually, she expanded the business and established Sanders Beauty. The brand quickly gained success both nationally and internationally, and now generates billions of dollars annually. While her management skills are exceptional, she's also known for being strict yet fair with her employees and is highly respected within the company. I grew up watching her work, often in awe of her. It turns out my mom had deposited $500 million in First National Bank. That money came from her company's profits and personal investments. Closing an account with that much money would have a massive impact on the bank. That's why Thomas was in a state of panic. "Thomas, do you still not understand why I said I'm closing my $500 million account?" "What?" He still looked clueless as my mom calmly questioned him. She sighed and pointed out the real issue. "You canceled my daughter's job offer for an unreasonable reason, didn't you?" That's when my mom slowly turned to me and met my eyes. "Jessica, tell me again, what exactly did he say to you?" "He said, 'We don't hire poor people from single-parent families.'" "Come on, you didn't have to be that honest." The moment those words left his mouth, he jumped in flustered. My mom's voice grew even colder. "What do you mean by that? Explain yourself." He stammered, unable to form a proper response as my mom stared him down without relenting. Then he glanced at me and suddenly asked, "Why didn't you tell me your mom was Karen?" "I thought you already knew and made those comments regardless." "I told you my full name multiple times, didn't I?" "That alone isn't enough for me to figure it out," he muttered under his breath as my mom glared at him sharply. But I pressed on without hesitation. "Why didn't you notice? If you had properly reviewed my profile, you would have known what my mom does for a living." He fell silent, beads of nervous sweat forming on his forehead. The truth is, during my interview, I answered all the questions honestly, including those about my mom. The interview notes should have contained that information. However, even though Thomas knew Karen Sanders was a major client of the bank, he never realized that she was my mom. His prejudice against single-parent families made him overlook accurate information about me. He swallowed hard, rendered speechless, perhaps overwhelmed by the reality of the situation. He remained silent. My mom maintained her firm and composed demeanor. In the first place, isn't it inappropriate to ask about an applicant's family during an interview? I thought asking about family background was prohibited. We only asked just in case. Of course, we'd never base our hiring decisions on someone's family background. Then why was my job offer revoked yesterday? You rejected me because I come from a single-parent household, right? I asked calmly, but his answer was vague. Well, that is, be honest. If you lie, I won't forgive you. Yes, ma'am, he said, and my mom's icy words made him flinch. Reluctantly, he began explaining the truth. According to him, his outdated beliefs led him to assume that my background could negatively affect the bank's image and clientele, prompting his misguided decision. In other words, it was the president's prejudice that led to the cancellation of my job offer. Apparently, he frequently asked interviewees about their family backgrounds and only hired those he deemed fit for a banking position. Once Thomas finished his explanation, the room fell silent. The atmosphere grew heavy until my mom spoke again. So you instructed the interviewers to ask about family backgrounds. I'm appalled. I'm so sorry. Though his voice trembled with fear, there wasn't a shred of sympathy in my mom's eyes. Yes, we were a single-parent family and we were poor in the past, but Jessica has excelled as a banker for years despite all that. His dumbfounded response made my mom chuckle coldly as she continued. You instruct your interviewers to pry into applicants' backgrounds, yet you don't know a thing yourself. My mom then began explaining my career history. I had worked for years in the corporate sales department of a regional bank. I handled numerous loan projects and was praised for my attentive customer service, earning a reputation among local businesses and sole proprietors as honest and trustworthy. My supervisors considered me a strong candidate for a management role, and I was often sought out by my colleagues in the corporate sales department for advice. Based on those achievements, the interviewers at First National Bank highly valued my abilities and extended me a job offer. However, Thomas was completely unaware of these facts and judged me solely based on his prejudice against single-parent families. When my mom finished recounting my accomplishments, his face had gone pale, as though he was regretting his actions. Why didn't you tell me all of this sooner? As I said earlier, I assumed you already knew, but it appears I was mistaken. Hearing his feeble excuse, I couldn't suppress my frustration and responded with a hint of sarcasm. Thomas was at a loss for words. Anyway, I can't trust a bank led by someone like you. I plan to transfer the $500 million to another bank. My mom's icy voice rang through the room, making him visibly panic. I'm begging you, please reconsider. If you withdraw that much money, it'll severely affect our bank's operations and reputation. I don't care. Just prepare everything. I'll be visiting soon to finalize the paperwork. He desperately pleaded for her to keep the funds in his bank, but my mom remained stone-faced. With a resolute tone, she dismissed him and sent him out of our home entirely. A week later, my mom and I visited the headquarters of First National Bank. By then, I had already come to terms with the reality of my rescinded job offer. I was ready to take the next step toward a new future. As we waited in the reception area for the transfer process, hurried footsteps approached. When I turned around, I saw Thomas running toward us, drenched in sweat. Karen, I've been waiting for you. Please reconsider transferring the money. He was out of breath as he pleaded, but my mom stared at him coldly. Thomas, I've already made my decision. I'm deeply sorry about what happened with your daughter. We'll undo the job offer cancellation. Please, I'm begging you." He was practically groveling. However, his words didn't sway me in the slightest. "No, I can't forgive you." "Why not?" "I've apologized to you many times. I know the truth. I'm aware that you've harassed other employees at your bank as well." His eyes widened in shock as I calmly confronted him with the facts. Over the past week, I had gathered information about First National Bank. What I found confirmed numerous instances of misconduct and unfair treatment orchestrated by the president himself. Those facts painted a clear picture of just how irresponsible and ruthless he was as the bank's leader. The first thing that caught my attention was how the president applied excessive pressure and demanded accountability from the staff whenever a department's performance declined. He would publicly blame the entire department or individual employees, saying things like, "Your results define you." He would pressure employees who were behind on their targets and evaluate them on the spot. If they didn't meet the numbers, he'd hint at demotions or terminations, leaving the staff crushed by fear and anxiety. Thinking about the pain those employees endured made my heart ache. Moreover, his ruthless performance evaluation system was a serious issue. He would directly tell underperforming employees, "You're not cut out for banking." He forcibly encouraged competition between departments, which only led to discord and distrust among the staff. The atmosphere within the bank worsened even further. The internal politics were horrendous, and Thomas would openly cold shoulder or ignore rival employees and executives. No matter how capable someone was, if they didn't align with his preferences, he showed no mercy. Even more shocking, he completely disregarded requests for workplace improvements with phrases like, "Banks exist to make a profit." He continuously ignored the need to improve working conditions. This attitude fueled dissatisfaction and lowered morale throughout the workplace. After hearing my explanation, Thomas, visibly shaken, tried to argue back. "That's just a rumor, right? What proof do you have?" "I was an auditor before. Remember, gathering information wasn't difficult." "Damn it." He fell silent, unable to refute my words. Looking at him, I felt once again how reckless and foolish his actions were. Also, someone I know used to work at this bank. They told me how unbearable the pressure you put on employees was and how they eventually had to resign. The time that president they were referring to, that was you. I spoke calmly, watching his reaction. His expression grew darker. "That can't be." I heard it directly from them. When my job offer was rescinded, the way the employees laughed unnaturally, it was probably because they felt compelled to appease you. I looked straight at him. His lips trembled slightly, and he couldn't find any words to respond. I felt that the laughter that day wasn't born out of malice, but rather out of fear. In an environment where they couldn't defy the president's authority, they were forced to plaster fake smiles and play along. They didn't have a choice. Defying the president could jeopardize their careers. I quietly glanced around at the employees nearby. Unable to bear my gaze, some of them looked down, their faces filled with guilt. Thomas had no choice but to remain silent. I've already accepted that my offer was rescinded, and I've decided to apply at another bank, so there's no stopping my mom from transferring her funds. Exactly, my mom nodded, and her cold, resolute words made his face turn even paler. This can't be. The employees working here should either quit or report this bank externally. If it were me, I wouldn't hesitate. Each word felt like a sharp dagger. The surrounding employees began to murmur, and the tension spread. "Please, stop. Jessica, you shouldn't work at a place like this." "You're right. I'll apply to a better bank." Next, my conversation with my mom solidified my resolve. No matter how hard the president pleaded, I felt no attachment to this place. "I'm truly sorry. I'll keep apologizing for the rest of my life and offer you special treatment. So please convince Karen not to close her account," he begged. But his words didn't move me at all. "No, Thank you. I will not forgive you. Neither will I. I'm done with this bank. I never thought it would come to this. Watching his face contorted in despair, I spoke without hesitation. Hearing my mom's resolute words, he collapsed, sitting down on the floor. Ignoring him, my mom and I completed the necessary paperwork. The moment we stepped outside the bank, the fresh air felt comforting. My determination to take the next step toward a new future grew stronger in my heart. After we returned home, we reflected on the events of the day. We could only imagine the blow that withdrawing such a large sum of money would deal to the bank's liquidity. In reality, the impact was far more severe than expected. Uncertainty spread within the bank, and cracks in its management became increasingly visible. Moreover, employees who had long resented the president's unjust practices finally decided to speak out. The United employees exposed the harsh working conditions to the public, and the media widely covered the story. The articles revealed the harsh details of the bank's toxic environment, leading to public outrage. Even the Financial Regulatory Agency was forced to step in, launching an audit and holding the bank's leadership accountable. Ultimately, Thomas was dismissed by the board of directors. His fall from grace was swift. After his dismissal, he was fired from the bank, faced massive compensation claims, and even his personal life fell apart. His wife filed for divorce, and his relationship with his children was completely severed. Attempts to switch to another bank in the industry failed, as his bad reputation had spread, and no institution would take him. As a last resort, he accepted a low-level position at a small local credit union, but his pride made him an outcast there too, and he eventually resigned. Afterward, Thomas began living alone in a rundown apartment in the suburbs, struggling under the weight of debt repayments. A story that gossip columns covered gleefully. Clinging to his past glory, he took on part-time jobs to make ends meet, but even so, he was completely abandoned by those around him. The only solace he found was retelling his old heroic stories at a cheap bar in town, but no one cared to listen. Meanwhile, First National Bank found itself on the brink of bankruptcy and was placed under the supervision of the financial authorities, who initiated a reconstruction plan. The newly appointed management shifted their focus toward improving customer satisfaction, but regaining lost trust would take a long time. Many of the employees who spoke out successfully started fresh at other financial institutions, with some earning high praise in their new roles. They were working to rebuild their lives step by step, determined to reclaim what they had lost. As for me, I've since transferred to another major bank, and I'm thriving in their corporate sales department. My past experience has proven invaluable in my current role, and I can feel myself growing day by day. Since joining this new environment, I've often received high praise from my supervisors and colleagues. My honest and calm approach to work has earned me trust within the bank. I've realized that overcoming those tough times has made me who I am today. As a result, new promotion opportunities have come my way. I'm truly grateful that my hard work has been recognized, giving me a clear path to the next step. With renewed determination, I'm ready to continue striving toward my goals. Meanwhile, my mom remains at the helm of Sanders Beauty as chairwoman, continuing to lead the company. Her business is thriving, and under her leadership, the brand is growing stronger and making great strides in social contribution efforts. Her support of my decision to switch careers and her pride in me have given me the confidence to fully dedicate myself to my work. The bond between us has deepened even further. I regularly receive advice from my mom, and sometimes we travel together or have fun chats about beauty and health. Those moments have become a great source of emotional strength for me. The success of her company has brought stability to our family, allowing me to stay focused on my career, cherishing the value of working with integrity and sincerity that I inherited from her. I plan to continue advancing toward even higher goals.